They mistook your quiet for defeat. They never realized silence has sharp edges. My dear chosen ones, let them keep believing you were asleep. Let them replay their laughter in their heads, the jokes they made about your stillness, the way they mistook your calm for collapse. Because now, as they scramble to explain how the ground vanished beneath them, they'll realize something too late. You were never standing still. You were building the floor they're now falling through. They called you weak because you didn't fight for their attention. They thought your patience was hesitation, your stillness was fear. But the truth is, you were calculating, calibrating, waiting for their noise to choke itself out. You see, the impatient always reveal themselves first. They rush, they stumble, they show their hands too early. But you, my chosen ones, you played the long game. You were the still water that looked harmless on the surface, but held an undertow strong enough to pull down giants. They thought power came from motion. You learned that real power comes from control. The ability to not react when every nerve wants to strike back. The strength to watch chaos unfold without losing your center. That's what separates the chosen from the common. The world runs on impulse. You run on intention. Never confuse movement with progress. That's what they never understood. They were sprinting in circles, mistaking speed for strategy, noise for impact. Meanwhile, you were mastering the art of deliberate delay, the kind that builds empires quietly while the world mocks your silence. They thought you were waiting for something to happen. But patience in your hands was a loaded weapon disguised as peace. Every moment you waited, the pressure built, not around you, but around them. And now, my chosen ones, look at them. The same ones who claim to lead are tripping over their own arrogance. The same ones who mocked your calm are drowning in their own noise. The irony is poetic. They ran from stillness as if it were weakness, only to end up trapped by their own movement. You ever notice how storms don't announce themselves with chatter? They just build, quietly, steadily, inevitably, and when they hit, everything changes. That's you. You are the storm that studied before striking, the horizon that never moved, yet somehow everyone is chasing. They underestimated you because you didn't show your hand, because you didn't explain your silence. But silence doesn't mean absence, it means observation. You were watching every move, every slip, every false smile. You were memorizing the exits while they bragged about owning the room. Revenge is for the loud. Evolution is for the patient. And that's the game you played, the one they never even knew existed. They wanted to win arguments. You wanted to win time. They sought validation. You sought vision, and vision always wins. They'll ask, how did you do it? How did you survive when everything seemed against you? And you'll smile, because the answer is simple. You didn't survive despite the stillness. You survived because of it. Your patience was never passive, it was predictive. Every second you didn't move, you were moving closer to inevitability. So let them talk, let them guess, let them call your calm luck. You don't owe them an explanation. They're trapped in a game they built with their own noise, their own ego, their own need to be seen. You, chosen ones, don't need to be seen. You only need to be felt. And that's what's happening now. They're feeling you. The quiet force they laughed at is the same one shaking the ground beneath them. They thought your silence was surrender, but it was surveillance. They thought your patience was pause, but it was power. They thought you were sleeping, but you were setting the trap. And now, my chosen ones, it's closed. And before we dive deeper, thank you, my chosen ones. Whether this is your first time here, or you've been walking this path in silence for a while, know this. Your patience, your endurance, your restraint. It was never wasted. It was the blueprint of the trap they're now caught in. This space is for those who see beyond the noise, who move with intent while the world rushes blindly. If that's you, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop the number 11 in the comments, because that's the mark of those who wait, watch, and win. Stay till the end, because what comes next will hit differently. You'll see the patterns, the signs, the proof that your patience was never weakness. It was the setup. And now, let's break it down, step by step. Because if you're truly one of the chosen, you'll recognize every word that follows as a reflection of your own story. Let's begin. Number 1, they called it stillness. You turned it into strategy. They thought you were frozen, but you were loading. They mocked your silence, not realizing it was the sound of you reloading. My dear chosen ones, they thought your stillness meant you were done. They looked at your calm face, your quiet steps, your refusal to chase noise, and they wrote you off as finished. They didn't understand that silence isn't the absence of movement. It's the gathering of force. They saw you paused, but you weren't paused. You were aligning, calculating, refining. You were loading every moment, every breath, every glance like a chambered round waiting for the right second to fire. They laughed because they mistook your patience for paralysis. But patience, when mastered, isn't waiting. It's stalking the right opportunity while the loud ones burn themselves out. They ran fast because they were scared of standing still. You stayed still because you knew exactly where you were going. They call that indecision. You call it precision. The loud ones can't handle quiet. They think if they're not being seen, they're disappearing. That's why they chase the spotlight like moths to a flame, never realizing that the light burns what gets too close. But you, chosen one, you didn't need to be seen to exist. You were the darkness, learning how to shape itself into something unstoppable. You weren't inactive, you were invisible on purpose. They'll ask, why didn't you fight back sooner? But here's the truth, they were never worth your first strike. You knew reacting early plays into the hands of the reckless. You let them talk, move, expose, unravel, because when you're calm, you see everything. Stillness sharpens vision. You start noticing who blinks first, who flinches, who hides their fear behind performance. You weren't behind. You were ahead, just disguised as stillness. Still water reflects the deepest truth. And that's exactly what you did. You reflected their real faces back to them while they performed for an audience that didn't care. They thought you were out of the game because they couldn't read your moves. That's not weakness, that's psychological warfare. You gave them silence, and they mistook it for surrender. But silence isn't retreat, it's reconnaissance. You were collecting data while they were collecting attention. They had every chance to back off, but arrogance doesn't recognize danger when it's quiet. They kept talking, kept showing off, kept assuming you were harmless. And that's when it happened. The trap they joked didn't exist started to tighten. Not because you pulled it, because they walked right into it. You see, chosen ones, your stillness was never passive. It was a mirror. It showed them what they really were when no one clapped, when no one praised, when no one followed. They couldn't handle their own reflection, and in that discomfort, they made every mistake you needed them to make. They thought you were frozen. You were just focused. They mistook your composure for fear, your restraint for weakness, your quiet for defeat. But power doesn't always roar. It observes, it studies, it waits. And now, as the noise dies and their show collapses under its own weight, the silence they mocked becomes the proof that you won without ever moving a muscle. They thought you were frozen. My dear chosen ones, you were loading. Number 2, your silence wasn't surrender. It was surveillance. They heard silence and mistook it for surrender. They thought your quiet meant defeat, but silence has teeth, and you let it bite when they weren't listening. My dear chosen ones, this is where most of them got it wrong. They mistook your silence for submission, your calm for emptiness, your restraint for fear. They believed that because you didn't react, you didn't care. That because you didn't argue, you didn't have the words. But the truth, the one that burns them now, is that your silence was never weakness. It was strategy. It was judgment without announcement. You weren't quiet because you had nothing to say. You were quiet because you were listening. Every word they spoke, every exaggerated gesture, every half smile dripping with hidden motives, you caught it all. You watched the way they performed for attention, the way they tried to dominate the air in every room. And while they were busy proving themselves, you were profiling them. You were learning their rhythm, studying the tremor in their tone, recognizing how desperation hides behind confidence. Noise reveals the insecure. Silence refines the dangerous. You mastered that truth. You understood that silence doesn't mean absence. It means dominance without desperation. While they flailed around trying to control the narrative, your silence controlled the room. Because the moment you stop reacting, you stop feeding their illusion of control. And when that illusion dies, so does their power. You see, chosen ones, some people can't survive quiet. They live off chaos, off arguments, off the sound of their own manipulation. They need a reaction to stay alive. You denied them that oxygen. You didn't give them the satisfaction of knowing they got under your skin. You let them choke on their own noise, drown in their own echo. And when the room finally went still, they were forced to face the one sound they couldn't manipulate, their own truth. Your silence became a mirror, and they didn't like what stared back. Their guilt, their lies, their insecurities, all of it started to crawl up their throat the moment you stopped responding. That's the real reason they hated your quiet. It wasn't passive, it was pressure. It wasn't peace, it was power wrapped in patience. You didn't retreat, you reset. You let the dust settle so reality could reveal itself. While they mistook noise for influence, you learned that the loudest person in the room is usually the most afraid. They confuse attention with control, but real control doesn't need witnesses, it needs awareness. You had that, you always did, and now they can't stop replaying every conversation, every silence, every glance you didn't give. They wonder what you know, what you saw, what you're waiting for. That's how deep silence cuts. It echoes in their conscience long after you've moved on. Silence wasn't your weakness. It was your verdict. You didn't lose your voice. You used it differently. You spoke through absence. You declared through stillness. You let the truth reveal itself without lifting a finger. And now, my chosen ones, they're trapped. Not in your words, but in their own. They called it your silence. But in reality, it was your sentence. Number 3, you weren't picked by people. You were perfected by pressure. They never chose you. That's what made you unstoppable. They built their circles to feel safe. You built your solitude to become dangerous. My dear chosen ones, let's make one thing clear. You were never chosen by the crowd. You were never voted in, crowned, or handed a spotlight. They never clapped for you, never cheered your name, never offered you a seat at their table. And that's precisely why you became a threat. You weren't made by their applause. You were forged in their absence. You learned how to rise without permission, how to create without validation, how to move in silence while they were still asking to be noticed. The crowd only loves what it can label. They only support what fits neatly into their comfort zone, predictable, loud, easy to digest. But you, chosen one, were none of those things. You were too complex to categorize, too raw to brand, too deep to imitate. You weren't meant to be understood. You were meant to be undeniable. They think power is about being seen. You know power is about being unshakable. While they chased followers, you chased foundations. While they polished their image, you refined your intent. They ran toward noise because they feared silence. You sought solitude because you knew that's where the real work happens, in the shadows, in the grind, in the unglamorous space between doubt and discipline. Popularity is a costume. Precision is a weapon. You didn't need a crowd to tell you who you were. Life itself tested you, stripped you, reshaped you. It took away the easy layers, illusions, comfort, false confidence, until only the truth remained. That's what the crowd can't replicate. They were decorated, you were distilled, They wore masks to impress. You lost yours to evolve, and that's why you move differently now. You carry a kind of calm that unsettles people. They can't place it, but they feel it. That quiet confidence born not from validation, but from surviving storms they couldn't handle. They can't figure out how someone they ignored has become impossible to overlook. But that's what happens when you stop trying to be included and start becoming the structure itself. You were never waiting for a seat. You were becoming the foundation the entire room stands on. They followed the script. You burned it. They were trained to play roles. You learned to carry truth. And truth, when spoken by someone unafraid to lose the crowd, becomes a weapon sharper than any performance. That's why you make them uncomfortable. Not because you try to, but because you remind them of what's missing in themselves. Real power doesn't announce itself. It rearranges the room without saying a word. That's you, chosen ones. You didn't come to blend in, you came to break the pattern. They can't control what they didn't create, and that's why you were never picked. You were a variable they couldn't predict. Their validation was a leash. Your solitude cut it clean. They thought power came from being accepted. You learned power comes from being inevitable. You weren't chosen by them. You were shaped by reality itself. And now, reality is answering back. Number 4. Their rush was noise. Your patience was precision. They mistook your pace for pause, but every second you waited was their clock running out. They sprinted for the spotlight. You built the stage they'll collapse on. My chosen ones, let them laugh at your slow steps. Let them think they've left you behind, because what they never understood is this. Your delay wasn't hesitation, it was design. You weren't crawling, you were calculating. Every quiet second they mocked was another brick in the structure they'll soon envy and fear. They thought they were winning because they were moving fast. But speed means nothing when you're sprinting toward a cliff. They called you slow, indecisive, lazy. But the truth is, they were addicted to motion, not progress. They moved because stillness scared them. Silence made them confront their emptiness, and they couldn't stand the echo. So they filled it with noise, meetings, performances, half-built ideas, hollow victories. You, on the other hand, understood something deeper. Motion without meaning is just panic disguised as progress. You weren't trying to be seen, you were trying to last. A storm that builds slowly, tears longer. That's what they never realized. They were obsessed with being first, while you were focused on being final. They burned through their fuel to feel important in the moment, while you were building an engine designed to outlive trends, seasons, and applause. Their momentum was borrowed, yours was earned. They rushed to show results, but quick things rarely grow roots. And now those roots, your patience, your process, are what's holding you steady while their shiny towers begin to tilt. They thought your delay meant you were behind. But you weren't behind. You were underground, setting foundations where no one could see. You were building beneath the noise, in silence, in discipline, while they danced for validation that fades the second the music stops. Now look around, chosen ones. The cracks are showing. The same people who once bragged about their speed are now slowing down because they're exhausted. They've spent all their energy pretending to be ahead. Their crowns are slipping, their structures are hollow, and they're realizing too late that their entire empire was built on air. Meanwhile, you're just getting started, steady, grounded, unshakable. You didn't delay your rise, you timed it. You let their fireworks burn out, so when your light appears, it doesn't fade, it blinds. They peaked too early because they confused being noticed with being ready. You didn't peak. You prepared. That's why your rise feels heavier, more permanent, more undeniable. You weren't meant to explode, you were meant to evolve. They spent years racing for relevance. You spent years mastering resilience. They mistook speed for strength. Now they're learning that endurance is the real power. And the cruel irony, your so-called delay was the very thing that made their downfall inevitable. Because while they sprinted through shortcuts, you built through structure. So, my chosen ones, don't ever doubt your pace. Your patience wasn't a pause, it was pressure, applied quietly until cracks appeared in their rush-built illusions. They thought your delay was your weakness, but now, every second they wasted trying to be first has become the countdown to their own collapse. You were never late, you were never slow, you were simply unstoppable, in silence, in depth, in precision. And now, as they fall apart, chasing the speed they worshipped, you'll walk past, calm, composed, and complete, because your delay was their decay. Number 5. You didn't vanish, you moved beyond visibility. They thought you were gone, but you were just out of their reach. They buried you in silence, not knowing you were growing roots beneath their feet. My dear chosen ones, they thought your absence meant defeat. They assumed that because you weren't visible, you weren't relevant, that because you stopped explaining, you stopped existing. But you weren't gone, you were just operating on a level they couldn't comprehend. They were tuned to noise, you were tuned to nuance. They played on the surface, splashing around in the shallow end, while you built an entire world beneath the current. You see, people who live for attention can't understand what it means to disappear on purpose. They think if no one's watching, it doesn't count. But the chosen ones know the most dangerous growth happens in silence. You don't announce evolution, you become it. You don't perform power, you embody it. That's what they never saw coming. While they were busy counting likes, you were counting lessons. While they were chasing validation, you were stacking victories in the dark. They called you inactive, irrelevant, quiet, as if stillness were surrender. But silence doesn't mean the story's over. It means the next chapter's being written where they can't interfere. You weren't losing, you were leveling up, just not on their map. You were building something that couldn't be seen or sabotaged. Every step they mocked as inaction was actually precision. Every time you withdrew, you weren't quitting, you were upgrading. Those who play on one plane mistake depth for disappearance. That's what happened here. They were obsessed with the scoreboard, but you stopped playing their game altogether. They were stuck in patterns, in predictable loops of ego and competition, while you moved into a new frequency, one they can't access because they never learned how to be still. They're trying to compete with a ghost that doesn't exist anymore. The version of you they're fighting is gone, evolved, redefined, untouchable. And now, my chosen ones, look at them. They're chasing shadows, arguing with air, confused about how you keep winning battles you never even show up for. They think you disappeared, but you were expanding. They think you escaped, but you were transforming. You learned that sometimes the best move isn't to strike, it's to step sideways into a dimension where their weapons don't work. You can't hit what you can't see. You can't control what doesn't play by your rules. They wanted you predictable. They wanted you reactive. They wanted you small enough to fit inside their expectations. But you slipped through the cracks, like light through a keyhole, unseen but unstoppable. You stopped arguing for your worth and started designing your world. That's what terrifies them. They can't track you anymore. They can't measure what doesn't seek approval. You didn't play dead, my chosen ones. You played dimensional. You learned to exist beyond their vision, beyond their noise, beyond their reach. They kept score in one arena while you were building empires in another. And when they finally look up from their games, out of breath and out of tricks, they'll realize the truth. You didn't vanish. You ascended. Number 6. You didn't trap them. You just gave them time to trap themselves. They thought you set the trap, but they built it themselves. You didn't push them into the fire. You just handed them the match and watched them brag about the smoke. My dear chosen ones, this is where the truth gets poetic, because sometimes the smartest move is no move at all. You didn't need to scheme, manipulate, or sabotage. You only needed to let time do what time does best, reveal everything. They were so obsessed with proving themselves that they ended up exposing themselves. Every word, every fake smile, every exaggerated move was another brick in the fortress of their own downfall. You simply stood still while they built the cage they now call home. They mistook your stillness for surrender. They thought your silence meant you had no power, no plan. But here's the irony. They were so loud trying to show control that they lost it entirely. They kept talking, kept moving, kept boasting about being ahead, never realizing they were sprinting straight into the snare they designed with their own arrogance. That's the beauty of patience, my chosen ones. You didn't have to lay a single trap. They volunteered for it. Ego always builds the stage it eventually falls from. They thought the spotlight was their throne, but you knew better. It was a heat lamp, and sooner or later, the illusion would start to melt. You didn't need to expose them. Exposure was built into their performance. Their lies were never sustainable. Their confidence was paper-thin, and you knew it. You watched, you waited, and you let gravity handle the rest. You gave them freedom, and they mistook it for dominance. You gave them silence, and they mistook it for fear. You gave them distance, and they called it defeat. But that distance was design. You weren't pulling away. You were letting them hang themselves with their own need to be seen, praised, and validated. Every time they took a step forward to prove superiority, they were stepping deeper into their own illusion. You simply let them keep walking. They called it leadership. You saw it was panic in disguise. They called it confidence. You recognized it as overcompensation. They called it power. You saw insecurity stitched together with attention, and you never interrupted because interference would have ruined the show. You let them perform until the performance collapsed. Because, chosen ones, that's what truth does. It doesn't shout. It waits. And when it arrives, it needs no explanation. You see, their downfall wasn't born from your plan. It was born from their pride. You just understood that arrogance carries its own expiration date. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need validation. You just needed patience. The kind that watches quietly while the loud ones destroy themselves trying to look untouchable. Now the trap has closed, not because you set it, but because they refuse to slow down and see it forming beneath their own feet. The rope they used to climb higher was the same rope tightening around their ego. They thought the crown they reached for was victory, but look closer. It's a mirror now, and what they see staring back terrifies them. Because in that reflection, they finally see the truth. You were never the threat. They were. You didn't destroy them. You simply gave them space, and they did the rest. Number 7. They weren't your rivals. They were your receipts. They weren't your enemy. They were your proof. They thought they were breaking you. They were just proving how unbreakable you are. My dear chosen ones, for the longest time you thought they were the enemy. You gave them that power in your mind, believing their cruelty, their manipulation, their silence was designed to destroy you. Maybe it was. But here's the twist they'll never recover from. They weren't the enemy. They were the evidence. Every attack they launched, every rumor they spread, every fake smile they hid behind, all of it became the record of what couldn't break you. You see, chosen ones, enemies try to win. Evidence just proves what's already true. And every time they tried to tear you down, they weren't testing your limits. They were confirming them. They wanted to see you fold, to see you react, to see you crumble under pressure. But you didn't. You held your silence, your posture, your power. And that unsettled them more than any retaliation ever could. Because people who rely on chaos need witnesses to their destruction. And when you refused to participate, their performance fell flat. Pressure doesn't just crush, it clarifies. That's the secret they'll never grasp. They thought they were shaking your foundation, but all they did was strip away what was weak so that only the real could remain. Every insult was a test of structure, every betrayal a scan for fractures, and you passed quietly, completely, without needing applause. They thought they were inflicting damage. What they didn't see was that every blow they landed was sharpening you. The way heat tempers steel, their cruelty refined your edges. They were so obsessed with seeing you fail that they didn't realize they were helping you evolve. Their rejection became your redirection. Their silence became your clarity. Their judgment became the contrast that made your truth undeniable. And now they look at you, and it stings, because the very person they tried to break stands taller than ever, not in spite of them, but because of them. Their attempts to weaken you became your proof of endurance. Their hatred became your case study in restraint. They wanted to destroy your peace, but they only revealed your discipline. You never needed to prove your worth. They did that for you. Every time they underestimated your resilience, you didn't have to defend your name. They documented your strength with every failed attempt to define you. The irony is delicious. The people who tried hardest to bury you are now the ones standing knee-deep in the evidence of your rise. They'll never admit it, but deep down they know. They thought they were writing your ending, but all they wrote was a testimonial. Every line soaked in proof that you don't just survive storms, you study them, learn from them, and walk out untouchable. So don't hate them, chosen ones. Don't waste energy on revenge. Their existence already did the job. They weren't your downfall, they were your documentation. They weren't your enemies, they were your evidence. And now the case is closed. Number 8. They screamed for attention. You built undeniable gravity. They screamed for attention. You built gravity. They chased eyes. You built orbit. My dear chosen ones, you've seen it happen 1,000 times. They walk into a room and need everyone to look, to nod, to notice. They speak not to be understood, but to be applauded. Every gesture is a performance, every word rehearsed for validation. They wear confidence like makeup. It only lasts until the lights fade. But you were never chasing the camera. You were becoming the lens. While they begged to be seen, you became the reason people couldn't look away. They confuse being visible with being valuable. They think the spotlight is a sign of power, not realizing it burns hottest right before it burns out. They measure their worth in views, claps, and empty praise. You measure yours in impact, results, and silence that makes people think twice. They fight for moments. You build momentum. That's the difference. They want to be noticed. You want to be remembered. And memory, real memory, belongs to the ones who make a mark too deep to fade. Loud doesn't mean powerful. It means desperate to be heard. Let them keep shouting. Every scream they waste is another reminder of what they lack. You don't need noise to command respect. You command it by existing with purpose. Your authority doesn't walk into the room shouting its name. It arrives, and the air adjusts. People can't quite explain it, but they feel it. That shift, that quiet gravity pulling attention without effort. That's you, chosen one. You've built a presence that speaks louder than any introduction ever could. They'll say you're cold, detached, too quiet for this loud world, but that's only because they've mistaken attention for connection. You don't connect through display, you connect through depth. While they crafted personas, you were building principles. While they rehearsed speeches, you were refining actions. You didn't show up to impress, you showed up to deliver. And the world remembers the ones who deliver, not the ones who demand to be seen doing it. You see, chosen ones, there's a reason they always look exhausted. Attention is an addiction. It requires constant feeding. But authority feeds itself. Once it's built, it sustains. You didn't waste energy proving your worth. You invested it becoming someone undeniable. They want the echo of applause. You want the weight of silence after you speak, the kind that means something real just landed. They'll ask why people listen when you talk so little. They'll wonder why your presence shifts dynamics without effort. The answer is simple. You cultivated gravity. You didn't chase attention, you became the pull that attention can't resist. And that kind of influence can't be bought, faked, or performed. It's earned in the unseen hours, when you chose focus over display, substance over spectacle, mastery over noise. So let them keep shouting your name while they fade into their own echo chambers. You don't have to compete for space when you are the space. You don't have to demand attention when you embody what it gravitates toward. You are the calm in the storm of performance, the proof that silence, when backed by substance, is louder than every desperate noise combined. They wanted the spotlight, chosen one, but you became the reason the lights stay on. Number 9. They mistook empathy for entry. You turned compassion into control. They took your kindness for surrender, not knowing it was surveillance. They mistook your empathy for an open door, not realizing it was a mirror, showing them exactly who they are. My dear chosen ones, you've been there, the moment when your patience was mistaken for permission, when your calm in chaos made them think they had you figured out. They saw your ability to listen and called it softness. They saw your compassion and called it weakness. But what they never realized was that your kindness was never blind. It was strategy wrapped in grace. You weren't handing out comfort, you were collecting clarity. You see, chosen ones, when everyone else was busy defending their pride, you were defending your peace. You learned to let others speak first, not because you didn't have words, but because you understood that people reveal their truth in the silence they think is harmless. Every smirk, every hesitation, every casual betrayal, it all became data. You were studying human behavior while they were underestimating yours. That's not weakness. That's psychological mastery. They thought you were an open book, but you were the author taking notes for the next chapter. You let them believe they were winning your trust, when really you were mapping their patterns, how they lie, how they hide, how they shift blame when caught. You saw every flinch, every subtle micro-expression, every tiny crack in their mask. They thought they were playing chess. You were running an entire surveillance network disguised as empathy. Compassion isn't blindness, it's precision with better timing. You gave them space, not because you were unsure, but because you wanted to see how far they'd walk when they thought you weren't watching. And they walked right into your lesson. They assumed you'd never notice the manipulation, the half-truths, the quiet digs. But you did. You just didn't react, because reaction feeds ego. Observation feeds wisdom. You weren't being used, you were studying usage. You weren't being ignored, you were documenting patterns. And now that quiet understanding you built in the background has become your greatest advantage. You know exactly who's loyal when no one's watching. You know who shows up, who hides, and who performs. You've seen enough to know that the loudest claims of loyalty often come from the weakest hands. They called you naive because you didn't strike back, but you weren't built for instant retaliation. You were built for intelligent preparation. Every ounce of patience was sharpening your perception. Every moment you stayed calm, you became more dangerous. Because when you finally decide to move, you don't guess, you know. You've already dissected every angle of their character, every route they could take to escape. So, chosen ones, never regret the times you stayed kind. Never regret the times you listened when you could have lashed out. That restraint wasn't submission, it was calibration. You've learned that true strength doesn't need to announce itself. It waits until the truth reveals everything for you. They thought they were exploiting your softness, but compassion in the hands of the aware becomes a weapon of clarity. You weren't being nice, you were being strategic. You were sketching the blueprint of every false ally, every hidden agenda. And now that you've seen the full map, you don't need to fight for power, you already hold it. They confused your kindness for surrender, but you, my chosen ones, were never surrendering. You were observing the battlefield, quietly, patiently, until every false warrior exposed themselves. Number 10. They raced to arrive. You prepared to endure. They thought you missed the moment. You were just mastering the timing. They sprinted toward applause. You walked toward legacy. My dear chosen ones, how many times have they told you that you were late, that your window closed, that the moment passed you by while everyone else made it? Let them talk. Let them keep racing around the track they built out of fear, because while they were obsessed with being first, you were focused on being ready. You were never late. You were deliberate. You didn't show up when the crowd demanded it. You showed up when it mattered. They confuse speed with success. They think arriving fast means arriving strong, but you know better. The fastest sprinters are the first to burn out. The brightest flames fade quickest. And while they were celebrating their premature victories, you were building something they couldn't see. Foundation. They call that delay. You call it depth. You didn't need to bloom fast. You were busy making sure your roots could hold when the storm came, because it always comes. And when it did, their castles, built on trends, applause, and surface-level validation, started to sink. They called it luck when you didn't crumble, but luck had nothing to do with it. You were grounded. You were built for endurance, not exhibition. A flower that opens overnight rarely survives the season. They bloomed fast because they needed to be seen. You grew slowly because you needed to last. You were the seed that refused to break the soil until the timing aligned with the strength underneath. And now that you've emerged, there's nothing left for them to do but watch. Watch as everything they rushed to achieve collapses under its own weight, while your quiet consistency becomes the only thing left standing. They act like you showed up late because they measure life in trends and timelines. You measure in truth and timing. They showed up early, too early, before their character could handle the pressure of their image, before their ego could match their exposure, before they had anything real beneath the shine. That's why they cracked. They mistook noise for momentum. You were the one who understood that time isn't an obstacle, it's an ally. You see, chosen ones, you don't compete with their clock. You create your own calendar. Every setback was seasoning. Every delay was design. Every moment you thought was stillness was actually construction happening beneath the surface. They rose to be seen. You rose to stay. Now the same ones who mocked your slow rise are exhausted from sprinting in place. Their performances are fading, their applause growing quieter. You, on the other hand, haven't even hit your stride yet. Because when your moment comes, and it's coming, it won't be a flash. It'll be a shift, a permanent one. So no, you didn't arrive late. You arrived seasoned. You arrived ready. You arrived real. And that's something they can't imitate. They reached the finish line before they learned how to run. You're just getting started. And this time there's no race. There's only rise. Number 11, they saw a background player. You were the entire blueprint. They framed you as background, never realizing you were the architecture. They built castles out of echoes, forgetting it was your silence that held the walls up. My dear chosen ones, remember this. Those who underestimate the quiet ones always pay the loudest price. They looked past you because you didn't demand attention. You weren't desperate for validation or applause. You didn't beg to be seen. You were too busy building what they'd later depend on. To them, you were background texture, an afterthought, the shadow behind their spotlight. But that was their first mistake. You weren't the background. You were the structure. The lines they ignored were the ones keeping their entire show from collapsing. While they craved noise, you mastered the science of foundation. You didn't move fast, you moved right. You built with precision while they built with ego. And ego never checks for cracks until the roof caves in. They mocked your calm because they didn't understand it. To them, silence looked like absence, when really it was architecture in progress. Every time they dismissed you, you were laying another brick, measured, deliberate, patient. That's what they never grasped. Patience isn't pause, it's preparation. Blueprints never brag. but everything stands because of them. You were the blueprint, the skeleton beneath their illusions, the framework under their fleeting confidence. Without you, there was no structure, just performance. They chased decoration, you built durability. They wanted to be impressive, you wanted to be inevitable. They wanted to be seen, you wanted to last. And now, my chosen ones, the truth is surfacing in slow motion. Their towers are leaning, their confidence is cracking, their noise is turning into static. Why? Because everything they built was dependent on foundations they never honored. You, the one they dismissed, ignored, talked over. You were the quiet math behind their momentum. They thought the spotlight made them important, but the light doesn't matter when the floor gives way. They're realizing it now. The same silence they mocked was the stability they needed. The same restraint they laughed at was the strength they lacked. The same patience they called weakness was the system that kept everything standing. Their panic isn't about losing what they built, it's about finally seeing who was holding it up all along. You didn't win by shouting, you won by staying. You didn't need to prove yourself, you just needed time. Because truth doesn't fade, it endures. And endurance, my chosen ones, is the quietest form of dominance. The walls they built for applause are falling because applause can't hold weight, but foundations can. And you built those brick by brick in silence so deep they mistook it for nothingness. Let them talk now. Let them rewrite their stories, pretend they always knew your worth. The irony is too heavy for them to carry. The one they called background was the reason their structure ever stood tall. You didn't collapse when the spotlight dimmed. You became the light that remained when everything else fell apart. They saw background. You were the architecture. And when the dust finally settles, they'll understand. The blueprint was never beneath them. It was beyond them. And now, my chosen ones, here we are. The silence has spoken, the dust has settled, and the truth stands unshaken. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the calm that outlasted it. Every delay, every quiet moment, every time you held back when others rushed ahead, it was never weakness, it was precision. Your patience wasn't a pause, it was the power that built the trap they walked into. And now, as they scramble to understand what happened, you stand steady, untouchable, undeniable. You were never behind. You were simply building beneath the noise. If this message hit where it needed to, if you felt it deep because you know you've been walking this path in silence, then show it. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop the number 77 in the comments so I know you're one of the few who waited, watched, and won. Share this with someone who needs to remember that stillness is strength, and that patience, when used right, is the most dangerous weapon of all. Your story doesn't end here, chosen ones. It starts right after they realize they can't catch up. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay patient, because now they're caught in it.